Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining in today. For those that don't know, my name is Tom. I'm the Executive Director of Illinois Firefighter Peer Support, so I appreciate you being with us today. Today is always a little bit of an impromptu. I didn't put a lot of notice out about today's live event, but I have with me Jacob Whitley, and he's going to share his story of his uncle, his uncle's story. I don't want to go too far in introducing him. I'll let him say what all he does, but he produced a film in memory of Captain Thomas Wall, his uncle, who died in the line of duty as a Orange County firefighter out in California. So I thought there'd be a lot of good information for us to hear about this. Fortunately, not all of us are affected by this, but it's a reality of what we do. So I think to hear a perspective from a family member would be helpful for us to keep in mind in the event of one day having to help someone through one of these events. So with that, I will open up the floor and let Jacob give an introduction of himself. Jacob?
Yeah, sure. So this project, I kind of did it in two parts. The first part I actually started in film school. I think it was probably my last semester, and I took a documentary film class, and I always knew I wanted to tell the story of my uncle. And the big reason behind that drive was, yeah, I knew him as an uncle, but once he passed away as a firefighter, the fire community, which was extremely supportive to my entire family, came into play. And it's just different things like any family member linked to him, if they ever wanted to get into fire, talk to these dozen firefighters and you'll have a career, kind of a thing. So it was a very very strong community, and the more because I dabbled in it, I thought about becoming a firefighter on and off several times actually. Also while maybe being a filmmaker, kind of doing both at the same time. But I would talk to these firefighters and hear these different stories about my uncle, my family members even talking about him. Like one story that's mentioned in the film is my uncle, a different uncle who's a police officer. He and Tom were we went to a neighbor's house that was on fire, and my uncle, the firefighter Tom, basically guided the police officer what to do. Don't open the garage because the backdraft, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And basically just using a fire hose got the whole thing out before the fire department even got there. So there was a lot of fun stories that I always thought about making into kind of a narrative, but I never could piece everything together properly. And then when I got into documentary filmmaking, it made more sense to kind of make a film that was more of a tribute to him. And once I dove into that, my questions for the people I interviewed, mostly family members when I started, had a lot to do with the reaction, the way that the kind of world for everybody changed after he passed away. Because he was such an impactful person, big churchgoer, helped a lot of people in the community. He even, I can't think of the guy's name, but there was a guy in prison who ended up visiting and helped bring him to God, and different things like that. So it was taking him out of the equation. There's obviously going to be this huge void. And that's when things kind of got interesting for everybody individually. So the film itself, even when I first started it as just a short, was kind of a pairing of who Tom was and then how people were affected after the fact. So it completely surrounds his death and how people cope with the situation and stuff. So I started that would have been 2014, and then I finished the film as a feature in 2019. At that point, I interviewed more firefighters as well as Tom's kids, who I didn't get the first time around.
Okay.
And that brought a whole new aspect that involved more of a deeper reflection of his actual career, and the different steps he did to get to captain throughout his life. And then the one of the biggest stories that I wanted to capture was the with his kids. Once Tom passed, he had 2 sons and 1 daughter, and the question once he passed was who was going to walk his daughter down the aisle. And what ended up happening was both brothers actually walked her down the aisle.
Okay.
And it was just this deep, strong emotion behind it that it's just one of those moments that makes you smile, because it was the family came together and were able to fill that void themselves.
Yeah, I remember I watched it a couple weeks ago now, and I remember that was one of the things I was like, wow, like, you know, as a father, like, hadn't really thought about that. Like, something happens to me, what about this, right?
Yeah.
Who fills those voids? Sure.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes. I released a new trailer recently. One of my favorite quotes is from Tom Connors, who's the firefighter who had the helmet on his desk. He was saying that as a firefighter, you don't really think about the possibility of not coming home. You do the job every day, but that idea that you might not come home is not necessarily there. So when it happens, it's shocking, even to firefighters, as I'm sure you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I think for all of us, that like it's there, but you know, we also can't live with this idea of, well, today could be the day every day, right? Because that's crippling. But yeah, it is a reality. But I thought the film handled that very well. That kind of bringing it to right in your face, almost like, boom, here's a reality of this is a piece that's forever missing. And like you said, watching the family step into that was really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And who they ended up becoming today. I mean, even myself, I've always wondered what everybody in, I guess what I would call the Whitley family. Tom was a Wall, but most everybody in my circle, since I'm a Whitley, I call them the Whitleys, even though that's not necessarily the shared name anymore. But I've always wondered, had he still been in the picture today, little things like what would he be thinking about the situation in politics, situation with like the pandemic and everything like that, but also how our past would have changed. I mean, if he had survived, I probably wouldn't have done that documentary, which means a lot of the things I'm doing this year, some of the projects that I'm planning on doing wouldn't reflect little things like that. So because he got removed from the equation, our lives have changed very significantly forever. And we've become very different people had he been able to stick around. Which is, it has both good and bad connotations to that kind of thing. But it's the whole thing of somebody being taken away like that is like core shocking. It's it's not easy to handle even this many years later. I mean, one of the things I've mentioned, I don't remember when it was I said it, but I was pretty young when he passed, so I knew him mostly from memories. And as I got to hear these stories from different people, and it's like, okay, so I take what I knew about him and I apply that personality to that story. Now I feel like I know him a lot more now than I did when he was actually alive. So that's another interesting aspect to having done this project.
Yeah, it helped people, and there's probably others like you, family and friends, and in that circle that maybe knew him but didn't really know him.
Yes.
And so this is an opportunity to really get to know someone through your film. Was there any? I was curious. I'm trying to remember from the film if you had any of his, like the people that worked with him. I know you interviewed some of them, but was there anything that maybe hit the cutting room floor that
Hmm.
made you kind of scratch your head a little bit and go, wow, that's interesting, or I never thought of that?
Um, I mean, there's a couple of stories that I'm not going to share just because either
Okay.
they're a little too personal, might be considered inappropriate.
Okay, I
Um,
get it. I get it.
yeah,
That's fair.
I'm sure that as a firefighter you understand there's a couple of jabs that you take at each other that are kind of funny. But
Yeah, I got a couple I don't want shared after I'm gone.
I mean, maybe in private I would tell you a couple, but not since this is live. I'm not going to
That's a
say that.
fair.
But
That's
as
a
far
fair.
as maybe some things um, that maybe I didn't know before that didn't necessarily make it into the film. I found out Tom was a big car guy, liked fast cars, which thinking back, that would be one of those things that's like really I have a hard time saying that. Um, but those that were closer, like his wife, Chris, for example, probably would know that about him since there was her driveway that he would keep his cars in. Um, I will say one thing that it didn't necessarily end up even in an interview, but so me personally, I'm very crafty, I guess would be the best way to put it, like working with my hands.
Okay.
Um, I'm not necessarily like great at like wood cutting and things like that, but I like building stuff, and I got that from my grandfather. My grandfather actually I found out, I think I actually found out only a couple of months ago. He actually learned all of this woodworking from Tom. And Tom would like repair and refinish furniture. So he was and do cabinets and things like that. So Tom was very good at that kind of thing. He inadvertently taught my grandfather, who then taught me. So it's that was an interesting dynamic that I kind of found out
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me with the fast cars thing. Not that all firefighters like fast cars, but generally, uh, we tend to have high risk behaviors, adrenaline rush stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's fast cars, motorcycles, skydiving, you throw something on there, it's high risk, and we're probably going to begin.
Yes.
It's part of our makeup, the high risk behaviors. Uh, well, part of it is that's part of our makeup, having that high risk behavior, but secondarily, um, it's also from working, we get that adrenaline rush. We look for that when we're off duty as well.
That makes sense.
So yeah, so for you, as soon as you said that, I'm like, well, of course he did, right? It's also another similar trait is for a first responder to tell me that their spouse is a teacher or a nurse, and I'm like, well, of course. We all tend to be personality-wise in that helping community. We tend to fit together well. It's very common
Right.
to hear. Especially, I can't speak for the police side, but I know for firefighters to be married to teachers or nurses is very common.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know too much about the police side. My uncle that's the police officer, his wife is a I think you would call it a pig farmer breeder, something like that. But I doubt that's a common thing. Um,
No, probably not.
yeah,
At least not in most of the urban communities.
right. Well, they're out in well, you're in Chicago, correct?
Yeah, yeah, we're well, we cover the whole state, so
Okay.
we may have some pig farmers out there south of 80 for sure, but
Yeah.
north of 80, there's probably not too many pig farmers.
Right.
Uh, but so for those that want to view the film, where would they go and how would they do that?
So right now it's available on Amazon Prime. I think the recent, I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's rental only right now. So it's like a $2 rental on Amazon. It used to be
Okay.
free on Amazon, but there's been some algorithm issues with Amazon and independent filmmakers lately. So in order to make sure it stayed up and for people to be able to watch it, we had to switch to the rental. It's also available on DVD, which comes with just a little, I think it's about 15-minute behind the scenes um, interviews with the filmmakers. So myself,
Okay.
producer that I got involved with who helped me finish the film. That big particular producer Jason Horton is a big reason why this project got done to begin with.
Okay.
Um, he was heavy in documentary filmmaking, and we were talking about just projects we could do. I mentioned that I had done this as a short a while ago, and he basically said, let's get some more interviews. So that's why we ended up finishing it at the end of 2019. And then the narrator of the film is also interviewed in that little 15-minute clip, and it's only available on the DVD.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's I don't think we've mentioned, it's called Brave Are the Fallen is the title.
Yes.
Brave Are the Fallen.
That
If
was.
you want, when we're all done,
What's that?
When we're all done, if you want to drop a link in the comments on Facebook,
Yeah, I can do that.
for people to find it easy. That that's of course.
Yeah.
Always helpful.
The title was actually influenced by the hotshot film Only the Brave.
Right.
And I really liked that that term brave, and I wanted to figure out a way to implement that into the title. So that's kind of how I began the evolution of Brave Are the Fallen. Originally, I think I just called it when it was a short, I called it Tom Wall Hero.
Okay. Yeah, no, Brave Are the Fallen. That's good, catchy.
Yeah.
Have you got any feedback?
But yeah, mostly from viewers. I've done a couple of advertisements where I focused it on basically the specific area where his station was, and then like a 25-mile parameter in Orange County, and Orange County, California. And I have gotten a lot of comments on those ads in particular. I mean, there is comments on the Amazon, about just people saying how they like it. But I think the Facebook advertisement ones are a little more significant because it's people who actually, I don't know, but they knew Tom. They didn't know the film existed, and because of the ad, they found out and were emotionally drawn to it, and very thankful that I had done the film. So those were the comments that I really appreciated.
Yeah,
I think actually one. Trying to think who it was. It was a brother or sister of Tom's friend who saw the ad and told me that they didn't know about it, so they were going to tell Tom's sibling about it. So just that being able to spread the word about it was a big deal.
Nice. So anything else you want to say before we? I don't really have any other questions.
About that film in particular, I don't think so. I am possibly I am in very, very early discussions with somebody else about another firefighter project that I might take on, which focuses more on trying to think of the word, hazards that you guys deal with. This particular individual is suffering from Alzheimer's, and I guess they think it has to do with a gas station explosion that he was involved with. But this is somebody that reached out to me, and we've like barely started a back and forth. So I don't know for sure that this is a project that'll happen. But definitely, as a documentary filmmaker, because I do both narrative and documentary, but as a documentary filmmaker, I'm trying to focus on stories of heroes. So stories like that definitely are something I'm attracted to. Okay, we look forward to seeing that for sure. If anybody has any questions, just be sure to drop it in the feed on Facebook, and either myself or Jacob will answer any questions you may have. We encourage questions. That's what we do. So with that, Jacob, I thank you for joining us, and everybody have a great day. Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it.